time in range really captures the lived experience of diabetes much better than hemoglobin A1C does.
You know, your life changes like with every second and you're always doing something. Your A1C, it is kind of stagnant. Prior to getting used to the time in range, I was so dependent on my A1C, and I think I went from like a 13.9 to like a 5.4, and like while I thought that was really good, I realized like a month later that a lot of that was because I was having so many episodes of low blood sugar, and it wasn't necessarily healthy all the time.
You know, before I had been not okay with, you know, the swings, but I wasn't doing anything proactively to minimize those. But once I started thinking about time in range and the fact that I wanted to challenge myself to be more time in range, then I started taking more proactive measures instead of reactive.
When I go into my endo appointments, I usually give them my pump, and then I actually share my Dexcom information with them, and they'll print it out over the last few months and stuff like that. I still take my A1C, and they're like, oh great, your A1C's here, this is why. And then they pull up the graph, and they're circling and seeing where we can fix and maybe change our basal rates here.
The CGM has definitely helped me in my relationship with my endocrinologist, because with just pricking your fingers and checking your blood sugar a few times throughout the day, you don't get a whole picture. You just get certain spots and times. With the CGM, you see 24 hours of numbers, and that makes it so much easier to tweak basals at a certain time, where maybe you look at a week and every day at 6 p.m. you're trending upwards, so you can raise your basal a little bit. Whereas just with pricking your fingers, maybe you don't check your blood sugar till 7 and you're already high. So it's harder to manage your diabetes in a way that the CGM just gives so much more data points that you can base everything off of.
There are a lot of glycemic metrics beyond hemoglobin A1C now, and the ambulatory glucose profile, or AGP, is a great snapshot to capture those glucose metrics. So let's break those down a little bit. First of all, you've got your GMI, which is the glucose management indicator. This essentially is what an estimated hemoglobin A1C would be. So the goal is to have it less than 7%, but you have to take into account all that's happening in your life as a young adult with diabetes. If you're dealing with diabetes distress or burnout, you may not be at a place where you're ready to have a GMI or A1C less than 7%. Time in range, also known as TIR. This is the amount of time that you're spending between 70 to 180 milligrams per deciliter. The goal is to spend 70% of the time or greater above that, but you also have to kind of think about what access do I have to technology, what are my self-care goals right now, how dialed in am I to my diabetes management, and based on all that taken together is where you can personalize those goals. Some of the other metrics on the AGP include time below range, or TBR. That's the amount of time spent below 70 milligrams per deciliter. You really want to try to have less than 4 to 5% below 70. If it's a lot more than that, then that could pose an increased risk for a severe hypoglycemic event where you passed out or had a seizure or lost consciousness. And then finally, on the opposite end of that is the time above range, or TAR. That's the amount of time spent above 180. And you're trying to really reduce that time spent above 180, reduce that time spent below 70, and maximize the time spent between 70 to 180. One way that I've heard it put is to have an FNIR glucose profile. That stands for flat, narrow, and range. FNIR. More time in range, less glucose variability, trying to stay between those lines to maximize your time in range.